Donald Trump accused of fraud and slapped with a $40 million lawsuit by New York State's Attorney General. It claims people who paid thousands of dollars for the glasses were scammed.
The New York Attorney General, he called the operation one of the most blatant, quote, scams his office has seen.
At Trump University, we teach success. That's what it's all about.
This morning, New York's Attorney General saying the real estate mogul cheated thousands. The lawsuit alleges Trump and other defendants operated an elaborate bait and switch, even advising some students to raise their credit card limits for the next level of more expensive programs. People like 73-year-old Bob Gio, who borrowed $35,000 to pay for Trump's seminars.
He took my self-respect, and he embarrassed me.
Trump says the lawsuit has no merit.
This was a lie from beginning to end.
Trump and the other defendants are accused of operating that school without a license for 6 years.
The lawsuits all basically say the same thing, that almost everything about Trump University was a lie, starting with the name.
Action is what Trump University is all about.
It wasn't a university, and its teachers didn't teach any Donald Trump secrets, according to New York's Attorney General. Felicissimo Limon says he paid more than $26,000 for the real estate course, but he says he got useless information and instructors constantly pressuring him to buy even more. He is now one of many former students suing in class action lawsuits against Trump University. Trump has been complaining of unfair treatment by the various courts, including one of the cases in California, where he hit back at San Diego federal judge Gonzalo Curiel, whose ruling last week allowed for the release of the Trump University sales playbooks.
But I have a judge who is a hater of Donald Trump, a hater. He's a hater. His name is Gonzalo Curiel. And he is not doing the right thing. The judge, who happens to be, we believe, Mexican, which is great. I think that's fine. You know what? I think the Mexicans are going to end up loving Donald Trump.
Trump University preyed upon the elderly and uneducated to separate them from their money. That is the declaration of Ronald Schnackenberg, sales manager at Trump University from October 2006 through May of 2007. Schnackenberg says, "That's when he quit, because I believed that Trump University was engaging in misleading, fraudulent, and dishonest conduct." Schnackenberg even cites an example of a couple he thought couldn't afford a $35,000 elite program he was supposed to sell them because of their precarious financial condition. He writes the couple would have had to pay for the program using disability income and taking out a loan based on the equity in his apartment. He refused to make the sale, he says, and was reprimanded by Trump University. Then he stood by as another salesperson talked them into buying the $35,000 seminar. "I was disgusted," he wrote. Connie Summer, a sales event manager for 6 months at the school, said instructors used high-pressure sales techniques, no matter the financial situation of the students. "I recall that some consumers had showed up who were homeless and could not afford the seminar," she writes. "Yet I overheard Trump University representatives telling them, 'It's okay, just max out your credit card.'" The declarations just released are part of an ongoing class action lawsuit, one of 3 claiming the school was a fraud.
What a crowd.
Trump's defense so far, the declarations will be disputed in court and on the campaign trail. Trump holds up high approval ratings for his school while individually attacking his former students who have sued him.
So you have this guy, Bob Guilo. He appeared in TV attack ads even though he rated the programs a 5, meaning excellent, the top mark across the board.
This is Bob Gio.
Trump was a scam from the start.
He says he was suckered into a $35,000 worthless Trump University real estate course by a motivational speaker. And yes, at that moment, he did give that instructor a 5 out of 5.
And the reason we did that was that at every one of these retreats, the instructors would say, "Your certificate of accomplishments are waiting for you in the back of the room, but you first have to fill out a questionnaire." And guys, I want Donald Trump to invite me back to New York to teach more of these retreats. So please be kind. Give me the highest rating possible.
Did you think it would get this nasty?
When you take a little guy like me, why not? be nasty against me. What can I do to Donald Trump?
As for the playbooks that are released, they're really dealing with how to do everything to bring these potential clients to an emotional level where they're going to buy into this stuff. It's the sales material here that's most interesting. Jake, here's some examples. Salespeople were told to go after potential clients with a net worth of $200,000. Find out about financial lives, how much credit these people had on each credit card they brought, and encourage them to use credit cards to pay for tuition. And never give customers details about what they will be learning in advanced training, all while being mindful of the ethical and moral impact of our actions. That is an interesting statement, considering the lawsuits filed, including the one here in New York by the Attorney General.
So you're a former Trump University student. Do you believe that it was a fraud, as the Attorney General has said?
Absolutely. No doubt in my mind.
Do you want to talk more about that, about why?
Yes. First of all, I signed up for the 3-day introductory seminar at $14.95, and we were told if by the end of the first day that we didn't want to stay for the 3 days, we could have our money refunded. I asked the instructor a lot of direct questions. They completely evaded answering them, so I started getting upset, feeling that this was not an actual learning seminar, but maybe just an upselling seminar. I tried to get my money back, and two other instructors were brought over and basically cornered me, telling me that I just didn't understand the material. I was confused. It's overwhelming. It's real estate. After all, I'm a newbie. If I just stay for 3 days, you know, everything will become clear. So I had a very hard time from the get-go trying to get my money back.
Okay, so $1,495 we're talking about, right? Okay.
That was the initial seminar,
That's not chump change. It's a pretty good chunk of money. So you eventually tried, as you said, to cancel your agreement and try to get your money back, and you fought it. How did that play out?
Well, what happened after that is I didn't receive my money back from the first day seminar, and they had gotten all of our financial information in the first day of the seminar. They, you know, under the guise of working with us to achieve our real estate goals, we were going to become part of the Trump family. We were going to be mentored for a year. That was the gold package, which was $35,000. I didn't sign up for it by the end of the 3 days. However, I was contacted continuously after the seminar.
This is the one this is the gold package, which is $34,995, which is basically $35,000, as you said. What kind of people were signing up for that $35,000 package?
There was a lot of seniors there that had lost money in the stock market, you know, so they were working with trying to rebuild their retirement. There was some husband-wife teams. I partnered up with a soldier that had just returned. There was a couple veterans there from Iraq. He had gotten blown up in a tanker. He was on an honorable discharge, and he was trying to rebuild his life.
How were they paying for this?
He wrote a check, and later the veterans' lawyers were able to help him with his case.
Yeah, and so how were the other people paying for it? Were they just paying for it flat out? Were these people these weren't wealthy people, were they?
No, what they did was really pressure people. The mentors singled out the people that they saw from the financial statements had available credit lines, because we filled out our checking, our savings, our credit cards, and our credit limits and our balances. And so the second day of the seminar, the mentors that we were supposed to be working with actually took us outside of the room privately to help us work on our real estate goals, and basically had really pressured people into calling their credit card companies to up their credit limits so that they could pay for these seminars.
I'm self-funding my campaign.
I'm self-funding my campaign.
So is he? Trump has provided about $18 million to his campaign, but he's actually cut a check for only $250,000. What makes up the difference?
The rest of it is a loan. The reason you make it a loan is that if it's a loan and you do well and you raise money from other people later, you can pay yourself back.
If Trump can raise funds, he can make the money back. In fact, he's already raised nearly $8 million from individual donors.
Trump finds himself newly under fire tonight because of money. An investigation by USA Today finding hundreds in business who accused Trump of not paying everything they were owed. sometimes tying them up in the courts for years. It's raising questions about Trump's history of business tactics. NBC's Hallie Jackson has details for us.
At Harrah's Casino in Trump Plaza Hotel, the original slot machines sat on bases built by the Friels, Philadelphia cabinet makers, who won a contract for the construction in the 80s, but lost more than $80,000 in the process. Paul Friel says they just never got paid in full.
It absolutely was the beginning of the end.
5 years after finishing the work, the family business out of business.
It hurt right up until the end when my father died 9 years ago. He talked about it a lot. He was not proud to have been involved with Donald Trump.
Donald Trump often points to his business skills as proof he can make America great again. But a new analysis of those business dealings shows Friel's not alone. A USA Today Network special report discovering at least 60 lawsuits, plus hundreds of other liens and judgments over the last 3 decades from people who say Trump and his businesses stiffed them. Not just some of Trump's own lawyers, but a dishwasher, a plumber, waiters and bartenders. Lots of who you might call little guys. People like Michael Deal. Back in the 80s, he delivered to Trump Taj Mahal $100,000 worth of grand pianos. But he says he only received $70,000 when the company refused to pay all of what it owed him.
Anybody running a small business, okay, as an independent business person, that's a lot of money. It hurt. It was hard to get over.
What's your name again? John Miller.
You're listening to a just-released recording. It's a guy claiming to be Donald Trump's publicist. But is it really Donald Trump on the line? It sure sounds like him.
And I'm somebody that knows, and I think somebody that he trusts and likes.
You might have noticed Miller sounds a lot like Trump. Soon after the interview, Trump admitted that he was John Miller and called it a joke gone awry. But today, he denied it.
It was not me on the phone, and it doesn't sound like me on the phone, I will tell you that.
Yes, of course it's Donald.
Linda Stacy of the New York Daily News has covered Trump for years. How sure is she?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I am 10. I'm 11. Everybody in the news business knows this goes on with Donald. He's been doing it for 30 years.
Today, the Washington Post was interviewing Trump about his finances when a reporter asked him if he had ever employed someone named John Miller. We're told the phone suddenly went dead. We also asked the Trump campaign for a comment about John Miller, but no spokesman of any name returned.
Investors say the Trump name was a great selling point, and they thought that if it was good enough for Trump, then it must be a safe bet.
William Flynn wanted to buy a vacation home for his family. In 2007, after seeing a new development planned for this location in Baja, Mexico, he put down a deposit so he could have a beachfront getaway just 1 hour from San Diego. At a VIP party, condo buyers shared their faith in the project.
The Trump name was a big thing for us. You know, we figured we can't go wrong with that.
But Flint grew concerned when he didn't see progress.
Checked it another time, still nothing is going on.
Then came the final notice.
We got a letter, I believe, from Trump Baja telling us that the deal wasn't going to go through. They spent all the money.
Financiers had pulled out, and the project meant for this location is still a hole in the ground.
I lost $168,000.
Flint, along with almost 200 other condo buyers, sued to get their money back.
How could you lose partnering up with Donald Trump? Donald Trump was an expert in these types of projects, or so we thought.
Our upfront fee.
In a deposition for a lawsuit regarding the property, Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., conceded that the Trump brand could lead people to think a project was a solid investment.
There's one of the things that you've learned through this process is that the Trump name brings stability and or viability to the project.
I don't know if it brings stability or viability, but I imagine certain people feel that.
So now a lot of the papers said Donald Trump wants to go and start negotiating with creditors. First of all, you don't have to think about this, but we print the money. I mean, these people are crazy. This is the United States government. First of all, you never have to default because you print the money. I hate to tell you, okay? So there's never a default.
In an interview with CNN on Monday, Trump proclaimed that the United States never has to default on its debt because it can just print more money. Trump's remarks have caused concern among economists, with some suggesting his fiscal strategies could have potentially devastating effects if he became the next U.S. president.
And I would buy companies, throw them into a chapter, bankrupt it, negotiate. I know more about debt than practically anybody. I love debt.
Pulitzer Prize-winning investigative reporter David Cay Johnston has covered Trump's financial dealings on and off for 27 years. He's just written an article called 9 Key Points about Trump's income taxes. David, thanks so much for being here on New Day. No one knows about Trump's financial dealings better than you. So let's go through some of the major points that may suggest something dubious in his taxes. The first one that I want you to address is what Ted Cruz just talked about. Did you uncover any sort of mob connections?
Well, Donald has a very long history of dealing with mobsters, big mobsters, drug dealers, and others. For example, his personal helicopter pilot, Joseph Wexelbaum, was a major cocaine and marijuana trafficker. Donald pleaded for leniency for him. The case somehow ended up before, out of 800 federal judges, his sister, Marianne Trump Berry, who excused herself from the case, but in doing so notified other federal judges of the sensitivity of this matter. Wexelbaum got a very light sentence, and somehow his girlfriend ended up owning 2 apartments worth $5 million in Trump Tower. By the way, Trump Tower was built not of steel girders like most high-rises, but concrete supplied by A&S Concrete, owned by the 2 biggest, most vicious mobsters in New York, Fat Tony Salerno and Paul Castellano.
Okay, let's also talk about Trump Tower and how it was built, because you say that it was built with using 150 illegal immigrants. You write that Donald Trump paid them less than $5 an hour. They got no benefits. Their physical safety was endangered. Now, this one seems like a big deal. This one seems like one that his supporters would certainly want to know about, given their passionate feelings about illegal immigrants being here in the country. What did you learn?
Well, Donald was found by a federal judge after trial to have cheated the workers. His claim that he didn't know what was going on at the website was absurd. His labor consultant, a convicted felon named Dan Sullivan, says in a documentary, and told me when he was alive, that of course Donald knew exactly what was going on. And basically Donald got mob protection so that he could have a site that used 15 labor union members and then all these other guys who didn't even have hard hats on to take down Bonwit Teller. And this is a pattern of Donald's that has continued. My former newspaper, the New York Times, just did a story about how at Mar-a-Lago, the Trump organization has turned away numerous Americans but hired people who are here from other countries.
Now, do you think that his supporters just don't know about that history of his?
Oh, I think that, frankly, the coverage of Mr. Trump's background, his history of cheating people, not paying people money owed, of limiting investigations by law enforcement into his background, which is an astonishing thing he's pulled off, is what we should be focusing on as journalists, not the wild and crazy things that are said. You know, our duty is not to be stenographers. It is to dig and be watchdogs and alert people to the salient facts about every one of the candidates.
So, David, what do you think is in his tax returns that he has not yet presented to the public?
What his returns are likely to show is that Donald pays no income taxes because Congress has special rules for real estate developers, private equity managers like Mitt Romney that allow them to live tax-free if they choose to. And I have Donald Trump's tax information from the late 70s when his income went negative, even though he had a lavish lifestyle. And in fact, he and I had lunch and discussed this, and I gave him some tax advice, which he thanked me for.
Interesting.
The other thing it's probably going to show, the other thing it's likely to show that's very important is that he makes little or no gifts to charity, despite all his claims to the contrary. Donald has not even made a contribution to the Trump Foundation in a decade, according to its tax returns.
So much less philanthropy and no taxes. Those would be interesting tidbits if they were to be released. David Cay Johnston, thanks so much for sharing your reporting with us. Fascinating to hear it.
Thank you.
Here he would build an edifice to himself, a retail atrium, all marble and bronze, 13 floors of offices, the rest expensive apartments. Trump Tower. Once again, Trump got millions in tax abatements by finding a loophole in a law designed to promote middle-income housing. To neutralize the opposition in future battles, he soon hired the city's housing chief, who had opposed him on those tax abatements. What about the apartments? At $1 million for 2 bedrooms, they're some of the most expensive in the city. Trump boasts they are the best.
The molding, the base molding, is the cheapest. It's what housing projects get. The kitchens, if I was in a housing project, I would have had a better built kitchen than what Donald Trump put into Trump Tower. The kitchens were... I've never seen more sloppily installed and more cheaply built kitchen cabinets. All of my clients, ripped them out.
The building of Trump Tower was the true art of the deal. Saving money was the key. Chapter 1. Hire the cheapest demolition contractor you can find, even though he has little experience. Trump hired William Kosicki, whose principal business was window washing. Kosicki in turn hired what became known as the Polish Brigade, more than 200 immigrants with no working papers who were paid 1/3 the union rate and worked under difficult conditions. Years later, deny you ever knew they were there, even though you visited the site.
They were sleeping in the building. They had no protective equipment. All the OSHA requirements were being ignored. They had no masks. They had no gloves. They were stripping wires with their bare hands, hot electrical wires.
Chapter 2. Don't tell anyone that the building contains asbestos. The reason? Asbestos is costly to remove and dispose of. Trump says he isn't legally responsible. The law says he is.
With the danger that was involved in working there, because all the wires, a lot of construction, it was covered with asbestos.
Chapter 3. Hire a waste hauler who doesn't care what he carts and knows how not to leave tracks. Trump's demolition contractor got Eddie Garofalo, identified by law enforcement officials as mob-connected. In August of 1990, while reportedly cooperating with federal authorities investigating racketeering in the construction trades, Garofalo was shot to death gangland style in his driveway. In the dead man's pocket, a wad of cash and a high-rated comp card for the Trump Taj Mahal. Chapter 6. Threaten the lawyer that the Polish illegals hire after your cheap contractor defaults on paying them. Make sure that the threats aren't traceable in case the guy isn't scared off.
Mr. Barron had told me in the one telephone conversation that I had with him that Donald Trump was upset because I was ruining his credit reputation by filing the mechanics liens, and that Mr. Trump was thinking of filing a personal lawsuit against me for $100 million for defaming his reputation.
It turned out that Mr. Barron was Donald Trump's favorite alias. When this was revealed, Trump said, "What of it? Ernest Hemingway used a pen name, didn't he?" Chapter 7. Manage to stay out of trouble when your contractor is tried, found guilty, and fined for not paying his Polish illegals.
And at any moment, this should have fell out of bed. Now, the people you got to ask the questions through is over in Newark, New Jersey, in the Department of Justice, where, interestingly enough, Donald's sister worked. She was the number 3 person in the office. The assistant U.S. attorney said, don't mention the name Trump inside here. If you want to talk about Trump, just say, let's go outside and take a walk.
At the time, Trump's sister was an assistant in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Newark. Today, she's a federal judge. Chapter 8. Have Daniel Sullivan make peace between the union and non-union workers on the tower.
In late July, July 27th, Donald called me and asked me to please come to New York because he had a major problem. The employees he represented on the demolition of the Bonwit Teller building were going to hang one of his vice presidents, Tom McCary, off the building.
Prevent the hanging, but a decade later face legal charges that you defrauded the union pension and welfare fund.
What do you think? You got to beat this work, Donald?
Chapter 9. To build the largest concrete structure in New York City, turn again to Roy Cohn. Cohn is also the lawyer for the New York crime boss who controls the concrete business. Payoffs from contractors are dropped off at Cohn's office, so he may get paid twice for his services here. But then, you get who you pay for. Conclusion. In every respect, the building was pure Trump. Behind every facade, another facade.
I built a great business. I built it very legally, legitimately.